Oh. No.
Okay, so we're going to have a short discussion today about what is love. You know, when you talk about love, when you think about what love is, what comes to mind? What do we think about love? So it'll be a bit of a shorter discussion, but sometimes people really struggle. They say the word love, but they don't really know. If you want to say something, you're welcome to unmute yourself. When you think about love, love often is a word that people don't really truly understand. I suppose everyone has their own imagination. You know, we have these slogans on billboards that say love is for everybody. Love is not selective. It's not racial. It's not this. It's not that. But what really is love? What's the definition of love? And how does Judaism define love? So the concept of love, you're going to see in numerous cases in Judaism, but particularly we find it with two mitzvot. The two mitzvot that we find the mitzvah to love, the one mitzvah is from the Shema. It says that you should v'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. You should love Hashem your God. You're supposed to love God. That's in the Shema. And we know that famously Hillel said, and Rabbi Akiva said, that when it says that you should v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself, it said Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. This is a great principle of the Torah, to love your fellow as yourself. So that's our question today. What is love? What do we know about love? And what does it mean? To what extent do we have to love each other? So the question is like this. If I were to command you and I say, I want you to love that man, that woman, I want you to love this person. I could say to you, I want you to go from here to there. I want you to walk there. So if I was a teacher, a principal, a parent, I can command a person to do something. That's a command. I can command people to do. But how do you command somebody to love? That's a feeling. A person, if somebody doesn't like somebody, you can't say, well, I command you to love them. Oh, but I can't look at that person's face. How am I supposed to love them? How am I supposed to have a feeling towards someone that I don't love? So the Torah wants us to have love for God, love for our fellow Jew, and for our fellow individual. But if I don't love them, how am I supposed to do it? That's the question that we're going to have. What's going to be the answer to this question? So to answer the question, we're going to go back a bit and understand something. When you have the concept of love in the Shema, for example, it says that love your fellow. Sorry, it says that you should v'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, you should love Hashem your God. And it comes after another line. It comes after, in the line of first says Shema Yisrael. We say this, we can cover our eyes usually when we're saying it, but in the Torah it just says Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, Hashem is our God, God is one. Now, that's the case that we say Shema Yisrael and God is one. What is it telling us? The thing that it's telling us, it's saying Shema. The word Shema means to listen, but it also means to understand. To understand what? That God is one. When you understand something, then you could understand, then you could appreciate it. So in Kabbalah and Hasidut, we explain it a bit differently. We say the following: if you want to have a feeling of love towards somebody, what a feeling of love towards something is, you have a real appreciation of the value of that individual, of that person, of that thing, And when you really and truly appreciate it, and you really understand how important it is and how meaningful it is, then you're willing to put your life aside. You're willing to do what you need to do for that individual. So when it says love God, it means first understand how important God is. Because the line before is saying understand. Shema Yisrael means not just listen, it means understand. Jewish people, understand. Hashem Elokeinu, God is our God. He's our strength. The word Elokeinu also means our strength. And He's one. The word one means echad. Understand where He is. He's everywhere. He fills everything. He gives life to everything. He is the source of everything. And think about that. You think about how everything in the world is not really a real existence in comparison to God. The more you think about that, what that should cause, the Torah is not commanding us just to love. The Torah is commanding us to do things that cause love. Torah is commanding us to do things that cause love. And therefore, if you then appreciate that your fellow man, your fellow Jew is a part of God, you say, if you love God, because you recognize that everything comes from it, there's nothing, in Judaism we say, there's nothing, ein od milvado, there's nothing besides for God. He created the world and the whole world is filled with His presence. And the world actually can't exist without Him. The world cannot exist if He doesn't constantly create it. So therefore, we really shouldn't be having much interest in love for anything else. That's the way we should be, but we're humans, and humans aren't like that way. So if somebody's married and they have a spouse and they want to love their spouse, the Torah doesn't say just love, it says understand them, talk to them. When you understand each other, then you can appreciate them. When you understand their importance, when you understand their issues, their problems, that causes you love because you understand who they are and you understand their value. The Torah wants us to value each other. Value, just like we value God, we value each other. The Torah is saying, I want you to understand that your fellow man, your fellow Jew, your fellow person is so important, is so essential to the existence of the world. And that's why you're going to love them. So love means that I value them to the extent that I'm willing to put myself aside for that person. That's the definition of love. Now, with that in mind, now we can go into a little bit of discussion on the Rebbe's last discourse. First discourse that he ever said. I'm going to just share my screen for a moment. So, this, what I'm showing you now, this is from the Rebbe's, could you see my screen? Yes. So, from the Rebbe's first discount, you can see it says the following. It says last week we did the first part, and this week we're going to do the second part. It says as follows. At the conclusion of the mimer, of the previous Rebbe, which the Rebbe went on to explain, he explained that God used to reside clearly and obviously in this world. And then what happened? Then God was able to be felt present and people would recognize godliness in this world because the whole intention was to transform the foolishness and the folly of this world and our animalistic drives into drives of holiness. Now, this is something that we explained earlier in the mimer. Now, this is where I want to get into our topic. In the conclusion of this mimer, towards the conclusion of this mimer, the Rebbe went on. Remember, this is the first time that the Rebbe is accepting his leadership. It's the first moment. It's the first speech he's saying. He's officially accepting leadership by saying this statement, this mimer, this discourse. And he now goes on to say the following. He goes on to say that we are here to fulfill whatever our predecessors, the previous Rebbe, demanded of us. He says, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kol midbarim. Whatever the Rebbe demanded of us, He himself fulfilled himself. So he says, how do we know this? Because we know that we say that by God, when God commands us to do something, we believe that to a certain extent, God himself fulfills that concept. Which means, Mashuhu Oiser, Omer Yisrael Ases. Our sages comment that which he does, he commands, he actually does to a certain extent, in a different way, but similar. That's why he wants us to emulate God. So he says the same thing is with our great Jewish leaders. If our great Jewish leader is a great Jewish leader, he doesn't go and he say, listen, I want you to do, go and do this and this. No, a great leader, if they want somebody else to do something, they're going to make sure that they're doing it really well first, that they're really into that. So he says the same is with the Rebbes, Chabad Rebbes. Whatever they asked us to do as their followers, they themselves did. They themselves would also expect themselves, they did it. And not only that, they would fulfill it to the extreme. Now, one of the fundamental principles of the Chabad movement, we know that Judaism says, that Rabbi Akiva said, that the mitzvah of the commandment to love your fellow as yourself, he says, Zeklal Gadol B'Torah. This is the great principle of the Torah. We know that. But at the same time, we know that many people considered it, it's as long as you have the time to take care of your fellow, you got to study Torah first, you got to do other things first. It's not the most important thing. Everything else became a priority over it. So he said, within Chabad, we know, and particularly the Rebbe, his first speech, what does he lay down for us? He lays out for us that the way we're going to make an impact on the world, he's commanding for us to transform the world into a dwelling place for God. That's what he tells us. He wants God to feel at home over there. What that means is that there should be a presence and a feeling that God is creator and that he's involved in our world. That's what should be happening. So this concept that the Rebbe is demanding of us, he wants us to achieve it through, one of the ways he wants us to achieve it is through the concept of Avas Yisrael, of loving your fellow Jew, loving your fellow self. And he says they did it to themselves to an extreme great extent, just like to make it easier for us. Now we know that when historically, when other people do things, it makes it easier for others to do it. For example, like, I was just talking to somebody about this on Shabbos, how there was certain, it was believed till like the 1960s or something like that, I don't remember the exact details, that a person could never run a mile in less than 4 minutes or something like that. It was a certain distance in less than 4 minutes. No one ever did it on record. So everyone believed they couldn't do it. And then one day there was one individual that he pushed, and then one day he did it. And he broke that record by a few seconds. And then within a short amount of time, suddenly many, many people were doing it. And also when it came to like figure skating, there was like a certain belief that you're going to do a certain amount of, I don't know what they call them in the correct vernacular, but you could do a certain amount of turns in the air when you'd flip in the air. So they believed a person could like 2 or 3 turns and then line back. And then it was never believed that a person could do any more. And then one day somebody did like, let's say 5 turns or 4 flips or whatever it is. And then suddenly people say, hold on, we could always do much more, just how much you push. And now, like what was the basic in previous generations became in a short amount of time after the first person did it, everyone was doing it because it makes it much easier. The same as our Rebbes, if they wanted us to focus on showing love to the fellow, they did that more than anybody else. Listen to a podcast today that the Rebbe was, without a doubt, the most available great Jewish leader in all of history. There was never a person that made himself so available. Every Sunday, thousands of people were able to come past to receive $1 from him. After every Jewish festival, he would sit there for hours giving out drops of wine to whoever wanted. thousands upon thousands of people. He had thousands upon thousands of encounters with individuals who would be able to see him, to talk to him. And his time was so precious. He was so, every single moment was so, so precious to him. So he says, so we're going to show now certain stories of our previous Rebbes about how they show tremendous amount of love to somebody else as examples. And the Rebbe particularly wants to bring this to light at his first talk, because he wants that his leadership should be a leadership which is focused on showing love to your fellow. And if you want to do that, he wants to highlight that this is the way of Chabad from day one, and he wants to show an example of all his predecessors. So he starts with the first Chabad Rebbe. He says that it was Kol Nidon, it was Yom Kippur, the highest day, the most holiest day in the Jewish calendar. And he went and he chopped wood and cooked soup for a woman that had just given birth because no one else was home. And anybody else can have done it. You would think that, what's the big deal? But the answer is, because Yom Kippur, the whole shul was waiting for him, all his many chassidim. He could have sent somebody else. No, he wanted to be the one to go show it. He knew of a woman who was in desperate need at that moment, even though it's Yom Kippur and it's the most special day in the year, and it's the day to be with in shul. But there was a woman that needed some help, and he somehow found out, or in his probably prophetic vision, that they weren't getting help. He went and he served her himself. He made a fire. You're allowed to break the Shabbat if it's in order to save a life. And he broke the Jewish festival of Yom Kippur. He made a fire and he cooked food for her. So that's the one story. The second story is of the second Rebbe, known as Admor Emtsoi, or the Mittler Rebbe. So he says there was a person that once came into a yachidus, into a private visit with him, a private meeting with him, which we call yachidus. And a person comes and they express themselves and they tell about all their struggles and tribulations, etc. And he cried out about certain things that he was doing, and it says sins of the youth. So we understand it to be something that he did, which was really was not appropriate. Things that young people do, inappropriate sin. And he comes and he's crying out to the Rebbe. So what does the Rebbe do? The Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe, he lifted his forearm. And he says, he showed how his skin clings to my bones. As in, he was showing how he and this individual, he says, I am so connected to you that when something goes wrong with you, it affects me physically. That's what he's trying to show. He says, look what's happened to my arm as a result of the inappropriate and not good things that you're doing. He was showing, look, it's affecting me. It has a bad impact on me. So don't do those terrible things, because look what it does to me, because I am together with you. We're brothers, we love each other. And I love you, and therefore it's having a negative impact on me. And he was doing that in order to encourage that individual to stop doing that negative behavior. And we know how special his time was. And he says that nevertheless, his spiritual bond with him was so strong that their unsatisfactory spiritual state strongly affected his own physical health, that caused his bone and skins to shrivel. So he says the same concept we find by the third Rebbe. Third Rebbe's name was also Menachem Mendel. He says that there was a story once that a person came to him and asked him for money, to loan him some money. He was about to go into the prayers and never had any money on him. He said, okay, you know what? He told the gentleman, yeah, sure, I'm happy to loan you money. He was a Rebbe he had the most Hasidim, told the Rebbe. He had hundreds of thousands of followers. This poor individual comes up to him, says, Rebbe, I need some money to loan. And the Rebbe said to him, yeah, sure, just after davening, just after I do my morning prayers. Now, there's a little bit of a background to the story. Was the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, his mother passed away at a very young age. And as a result, he was more or less brought up by his grandfather, who was the first Chabad Rebbe. So he had a very close connection. And we know that he used to have visions of his grandfather even after he passed away. His grandfather would continue visiting him. And we're told that for a short amount of time, he hadn't seen his grandfather, hadn't come to him in a vision. And he was quite bothered by it. Anyway, this one day, he didn't think of it. He had this poor individual come up to him saying that he needs to borrow money. So he said to the individual, I'll give you the money after the davening. Anyway, he goes to start his prayers, and he takes up his prayer, and then he thinks to himself, hold on a second. Today is a market day. The market, in order to get a good deal in the market, you have to be there early in the morning. If I wait and pray until I finish my prayers, and then I go home and I get the money, and then I go find this individual, it will already be close to midday, and the market will be almost closed. There'll be nothing good for him to buy. So he puts his talis down, and he went back home, he walked back home, he got the money for this individual, gave it to him, and then he started praying. And just after he did that, suddenly his grandfather came and appeared to him. And he realized that why didn't he have the merit to see his grandfather? Because he'd done this. It was totally against his nature. He was so busy, had so much to do, hundreds of thousands of followers, and people were waiting to see him. But he knew that this individual needed that help now, put everything aside, and he went and he helped him. We have the same thing with the fourth Chabad Rebbe, that he had health issues. His name was the Maharash Rebbe Shmuel. He had health issues, and he was sent to a healing spa in Paris. And he went and he traveled away from that. Sorry, his healing spa was in the country, and he traveled a far distance all the way to Paris from where he was. And over there, he met one individual, and he was in a hotel, and he went up to the individual, and he said to the individual, young man, you should know that if you drink that wine, which is non-kosher wine, it does bad, it has a bad spiritual impact on you and affects your mind and heart. And then he said, Zayid, become a Jew. In other words, afterwards they found that this Jew was a Jew from a very religious family, and he had left the path, and now he was not eating kosher, and he had left the path of Judaism. And just because of this one individual Jew, he traveled many hours and days, he believed days, just to go and say the sentence to the Jew, and he knew that it would have an impact on him, and then he came back. And what we find out, that afterwards, this individual was so affected by the words of the Rebbe Maharash that he returned back home, he went back to his family, and he found the Rebbe Maharash again, the fourth Chabad Rebbe. He repented, and he said he became very very special. And we know that the Rebbe Maharash, he traveled just to help one Jew, just for a certain amount of time, even in times when he was so busy. We know that he used to wake up in the middle of the night and catch every single moment. He would be finished his prayers early in the morning, even by 8 o'clock. So we see this concept of doing something for a favor for another Jew. And these are just one of many examples of where they did it way beyond the call of the hour in order to help another person. Okay, and then we have a story of the fifth Chabad Rebbe, that he was about to go on a long journey to Moscow, which was going to be very dangerous and very scary, and something that could be quite dangerous to his life. and he was going to try to fight or change a particularly anti-Semitic law. His older brother, who was known as the Razal, Reb Zalman Aaron, he said, why are you going? Let me go in your stead. Your time, you the Rebbe. You got lots of people that are waiting to see you. You're so busy. You have to make acquaintance. You don't like talking Russian. I speak Russian. I will take care of this matter. And I'll do whatever you want me to do, said his brother. The Rebbe said, no. The Rebbe said, no, I have to do it. I have to make sure it's successful. This is going to affect the lives of Jewish people. And therefore, I have to do it myself. And we have lots of stories of all the Rebbes and the previous Rebbes. Why was the Rebbe bringing this? To teach us this, that the greatness of a leader is how much they are willing to do themselves, how much care and kindness they're willing to put themselves aside, and how much they're willing to put themselves aside. So I'm going to conclude with this last thought for tonight. We kept cutting it a bit shorter because of the situation. So the purpose of the world is that we should make a dwelling place. We should make a place where God feels at home. The way we achieve that is by acknowledging God's presence and acknowledging that everything in the world needs God for its existence, and that God is taking care of everything, and we put in our effort and God takes care of himself. And at the same time, taking care of our fellow people, our fellow Jews, our fellow friends, our fellow all human beings, and realizing that they each are important to have an important role. And when we do this, and we're willing to put ourselves aside for the benefit of another person, even though we want to do something else ourselves, and we go and we put ourselves out there to help another individual, that brings about tremendous, tremendous blessings to us and to our fellow mankind, and ultimately brings the ultimate redemption. Because love, the way you got to do it is love defined by an understanding of your fellow and valuing their importance and the willingness to go beyond your own self and to sacrifice for the other person. And may we all merit that in the merit of Noach, who the shir is dedicated to, and the Rebbe who taught us these ideas and whose way we follow, we should merit to truly be able to show true love and friendship to all of our fellow Jews and fellow people, and everyone should have a happy and successful and good year, please God. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining.